Respected Chairman, Sri Vamanacharya, Sri Karthikeyan, and my dear friend, Sri Professor Sarat Chandran. First of all, congratulations to the group of youngsters who have promoted this awareness in action for initiating this kind of discussions from the nationalistic perspectives. Thanks to Dr. Lingamurthy, who is my close associate and a committed economic teacher, research scholar, who has asked me to attend this program without giving any option to me. Some of us, we are involved in conducting studies, field studies across the country, especially among the clusters that nurture these small and medium enterprises. So based on that experience, based on those studies, I'll be explaining, sharing with you some of my thoughts and experiences. First of all, we have to remember that during the last 65 years, the macroeconomic policy making, whether it was earlier socialistic approach or globalized approach, that was introduced without much wider consultations and without taking the ground realities into account. When we started studying these clusters, one of the things that attracted us was the manufacturing sector. We realized, in fact, one of the first things that were lessons that we came to know was that India had huge manufacturing potential. Whether it was in the north or south, we could understand this. During the 1990s and the early 2000s, first decade of the 21st century, when we were visiting these clusters, manufacturing clusters, we could understand the potential from the field perspective. Rajkot, for example, when we went there, they were telling us, sir, we are making all sorts of products, from pins to supplying spare parts to aeroplanes. They said, sir, we can make all type of products, sir. Then they also said, whenever a new automobile is introduced anywhere in the world, whether it is Germany or America or any other country, within 3 months they will come here for spare parts. In fact, in the Rajkot Chamber of Commerce, there is a quotation which was said by senior Ford Motors chairman, elder person. He said, whenever new automobiles are introduced, then immediately we go to the Rajkot people, because it is they who make the best spare parts. So this is how our industries at the local levels were functioning. Similarly, in South India, if you take another example, if you take, for example, Coimbatore. Coimbatore, all of us know, is home for many clusters, manufacturing clusters. And Coimbatore at one point of time supplied even 70% of this home pumps. Even today it is supplying 45-50% of pumps. And once upon a time it was known for textiles. Even today Tamil Nadu contributes almost 50% of textile manufacturing capacity, much of it in Coimbatore region only. So this manufacturing sector, we understand that India had great potential. In fact, after WTO was introduced, when we went around these clusters, one, to get to know the impact of the WTO, and to find out the opinion of the entrepreneurs in the manufacturing industry, some of the vibrant cluster entrepreneurs, they were saying, sir, we are not afraid of WTO. We are not afraid. No country can come and compete with us. This was said in Rajkot. This was said in Surat, textile manufacturing, Coimbatore, Tirupur, Karur. So people said, sir, we are not afraid of this WTO. This is the level of their confidence in those days. But on the whole, looking back now, we understand that the manufacturing in the sector had to face serious issues. Of course, vibrant clusters succeeded, and then even competing now at the international level. But to a large extent, our manufacturing sector had to face serious problems. So this is an issue which we have to take into consideration. And As a result, we had to suffer in the last 25 years, more than 25 years. In fact, we have to understand, as I was mentioning earlier, even from the beginning, we did not have a proper industrial policy from the native national perspectives. So these people, they have only minor problems, but nobody from the government, nobody from the policy making circles go and talk to them, find out their problems. This I say from our personal experience, because of course we have helped to a little extent in some of these clusters with very little inputs. That is what they require, but it is not happening. This is a very important point. I would say, apart from globalization per se, it was the approach of the approach and weakness of the policy making circles establishment to a large extent that affected the manufacturing sector, Indian manufacturing sector. You know, we did not make proper response, very poor response, especially when we face difficulties from the developed and richer parts of the world. For example, if you see between 2005 and 2012-13 to a large extent, our manufacturing sector had to face very serious problems. All of us may be knowing some of the very big companies, in fact very prominent companies such as L&T in the private sector, BEL, BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, these big companies, giants in their own field, engineering giants, they had to face serious difficulties. I don't know, some of us may be knowing about it, because imports were allowed without any restrictions, especially in critical sectors. I remember we usually have close touch with these clusters, and some of the prominent clusters. Well, executives were telling us, sir, hereafter we will not be able to compete in the international markets at all, because import duty was reduced to such a low extent that all Chinese turbines were coming into India without any restriction. So in spite of we having our expertise, we were not able to face this globalization. This is because one is globalization concept, second is the weakness of the authorities. So between these years, 7-8 years, 2005 to 2012-13, Indian manufacturing sector suffered to a large extent. So primarily globalization concept. Second, it is the approach of the government's concern, authorities concerned, that affected our manufacturing sector. And now, as rightly pointed out in the background notes given here, now we have to look at as to how we are going to make use of this globalization process. Of course, now it is being debated and discussed in the Western countries itself, as was pointed out by the experts in the morning. You know, now one of the most important proponents of globalization, namely the US, they themselves are not in favor of globalization because it affects their own interests. So in the changed scenario now, leaving all these theoretical discussions aside, how are we going to make use of it? This is very important. I have two propositions in mind. One is, we have to take all the efforts to make our manufacturing sector perform better and better. This is one. Second, as was pointed out by Ashwini Mahajan in the morning, that when we are affected, we have to retaliate and we need not succumb, as we are an emerging potential economic power. With regard to the first point, taking all kinds of steps, in fact, some of us are involved in some of the steps taken by either at the local level or at the state level. I'll explain just briefly one or two aspects to you. All of us know about this kite making. Kite making is not an industry, you know, it's a small activity. In 2003, we were invited by the then Gujarat state government to study the kite making and suggest policy solutions to the government. So we went there, we made a study, detailed study, going to different villages and conducted studies among the people who are involved in this kite making. And then suggestions were made to the government, and then policy makers implemented it. So as a result, we all will be surprised to know, at that time, 2003, in the year 2003, we estimated that the turnover was about 30 to 35 crores, estimates only. But now if you see, turnover has crossed 850 crores. So in a period of 13 years, 14 years, 30 times increase. Policy intervention by the government. So in a small activity, now we can call this kite making as a kite industry. Initially it was not industry. In fact, when we were going to meet the respondents, people, their first request was, sir, you please recommend to the government and consider, make this proposal that our kite making should be included in the cottage industry category. So that was their first request. That was a small time activity. Now it is a 900 crore, 850, 900 crore activity. So with the right policy intervention, certainly we can, governments, authorities can change the manufacturing sector. From our experience, I would say that we need to have our India-centric approaches, local approaches, because the problems of the Indian manufacturing sector, especially at the non-corporate level, all of us would be knowing that this non-corporate sector contributes a lot to the manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector contribution is at present 16% to the GDP of India. So this non-corporate sector level, SME sector, has huge expertise, skill, different levels, whether you take textiles, whether you take engineering, whatever may be the case. So they have expertise. Their problems, as I was mentioning, comparatively small problems, but only thing is we do not go there, study them. So in that connection, we have a role. In fact, all of us, educated sections, academic institutions, we have a role. In fact, I would suggest the AiA to take up efforts in this direction also. If you can mobilize people, we have good academics here itself like Lingamurthy, Priyesh, Anish. You know, our people themselves can go take up these studies, because government of India, different state governments, unfortunately, they do not have details about the functioning of the clusters, manufacturing sector at the local level. They have macro details, but at the local level, details are not available. It is our duty. In fact, I would even say, I am an academician. Academic institutions in the last 50, 60 years have failed to study India. So this is our biggest weakness. It is our weakness. So at least now we have to do this. This is very, very important, because India has the potential. If you see even the history, we all know how India ruled for a very long time the entire world in the textile industry. It is not just textile industry. There is a book by Paul S. Kennedy, Rise and Fall of Great Powers in the World. It says in the year 1750, India was contributing almost 1/4 of the total global manufacturing. 24.5% of the global manufacturing was taking place in India in 1750. The country that was about to rule us, dominate us, England, contribution was 1.9%. In 150 years it reversed. So in 900, Europe became contributed almost 25%, and our contribution was about 4% or so. Our manufacturing sector was completely destroyed. But now in the last 50, 60 years, it is due to the initiatives of the societies in India. We have documented this. It is due to the initiatives of societies that the manufacturing sector is coming up. Fortunately, in the last 3 years, several initiatives are being taken, and one of the initiatives that we all know is this Make in India initiative, which aims to take the manufacturing sector contribution from 16% to 25% in the year 2022, providing employment to 100 million people. So this is the government idea. So as a result, a lot of initiatives are being taken. 25 sectors have already been identified, and from textiles to biotechnology to defense sector, lot of steps are being taken. I come from Coimbatore. I know that in Coimbatore, even during the last 30, 40 years, there are many people who are supplying spare parts to defense sector, and they were capable. All these years they were coming and telling us, sir, we are ready, but government is not ready. In spite of government importing more than 80% of our defense requirements from other countries. Fortunately now, 2 months back, first time, defense corridor was announced in Tamil Nadu, connecting Chennai, Coimbatore, and in between 3 other cities like Salem, Hosur, Trichy. So it is expected to provide employment to 1 lakh people, generate several hundred crores of investment turnover, besides small and medium sector enterprises contributing largely to the defense sector. So we have the potential. We have seen ourselves, and we have seen some of us, we have in some cases we have documented also. So this is happening. This is one very good thing. I think after independence, this initiative is the single largest manufacturing initiative taken up by any government. So this is very, very important. But even today, in spite of all the initiatives, we need to give more attention to some of the aspects. For example, from my understanding, I would say handloom sector. This handloom sector has huge potential. We may not know. In all states I have toured, including Karnataka, this Ramanagara, many of you may be knowing. So Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Assam, it is one sector which is thriving at the local level across the country. But have we given any attention? Of course, now attention is being given. Prime Minister since 2015 has announced this handloom week, handloom day, and steps are being taken. But if we can give more attention, central government alone cannot do anything. Initiatives have to come from the local level also. If we can concentrate on this particular sector, then we can do wonders. I remember in 2004, we were invited by the then Madhya Pradesh state government. We went to one place called Maheshwar, where one of the finest type of handloom textiles are made. And even in those days, Maheshwar textiles were able to make name at the international level because they have connected their local saris to markets in Washington, New York, London, and hundreds of places. Even today, we can connect similarly, hundreds of places. For example, when the Prime Minister announced this handloom day and then introduced it in Tamil Nadu in Madras, the first person, the person who got the first prize, first award for design is from a village near Coimbatore. We went and met him. They are all very ordinary people, but they could make one of the best designs in the country, even at the international level. So far, nobody has given attention to it. So we have enormous potential. That is what I want to emphasize. So my understanding is that we have to rethink on globalization, and we have to see that globalization is taken to our advantage. I have a feeling that already government is taking steps, but we all have to help the government. We have to point out pitfalls. As I said, we have to provide all kinds of details in this regard. As far as the construction sector is concerned, as far as the infrastructure sector is concerned, except in the case of construction sector, private initiative is comparatively less. Whether of course, telecommunication, IT, it is there. In the case of roads, railways, etc., it is mostly by the state government. As a result, over the period of last 65 years, whatever has been planned and done by the government, that is the only thing. Otherwise, in the construction sector, we have huge presence of non-corporate segment. Otherwise, government role is very, very important. All of us know, to a very large extent, we have failed to develop the infrastructure sector to the extent that we require. As a result, it affected our development, our economy. All of us may be knowing, when this government started the process of finding out the number of villages where electricity was not there, we came to know that even after 67, 68 years, there were 38,500 villages without seeing electricity. Now, of course, electricity has been given to all villages. Now the government is planning to provide electricity to all homes, preferably before March 2019. So in the case of infrastructure sector, we have many gaps to fill. So, but here also, in the last 3 years especially, several initiatives are being taken. So whether it is Bharatmala, Sagarmala, all these initiatives are being taken. This is a very positive aspect. And one important point that we have to I want to point out here is the present outlook of the government to look at India, to develop India from our own native perspectives. Here I want to specify one particular aspect. For example, we have huge solar potential, but so far we have neglected it. But this government has taken this initiative, and some of us may be knowing that there is an international solar alliance, a project that is taking place, and India is a founder member, and the Prime Minister has announced that in the next 10 years, out of the solar energies that is being produced in India, in the world, 10% would come from India. So these are all very positive aspects that are happening. So I feel that as far as globalization is concerned, at this point in time, we should try to take advantage of the present position and do whatever best possible to make India stronger and vibrant. Thank you very much.